2, 3, 4. We need to talk about the differences among the different transcriptions in the Scruggs book and how he played these tunes. As I said before in a video, he probably didn't play the same song the same way every time he went out there and played. The early books here, the original from the 60s and this one from 2005, I believe, and even this one here, which has some transcriptions not contained in these previous two books. They all have some of these tab a little bit different from each other. The tricky thing about this is that they usually have right hand fingering down at the bottom of the tablature, but they very seldom have the left hand fingering, other than the slides, the hammers, and there's pull-offs, right? But we have to remember that everybody's style, everybody's fingers and hands are a little bit different. So what works for Earl, for instance, may be easier for us, for me, to go and just use my index finger up there. To summarize, it's really up to you how you want to do this fingering. If you have a fingering that you like and it's not exactly the same as I present here, that's fine. Some people are able to make certain stretches better than other people are, and you need to do what works for your body mechanics, okay? For your hands, for your fingers. Another issue that needs to be addressed is the early book, the one that I first started playing back when I was a youngster, back in the 70s, 80s, has the tablature for the brush like this. And that's kind of how I learned it, to brush up, kind of like your Cripple Creek. However, watching Earl play it on the TV show and looking at the revised version of 2005, I noticed that he's actually, yes, he does slide up there, but he's really brushing on the way down. So it's kind of like this. And I'll play it like Earl does by moving my middle finger over here. So just a slight difference from the way I was doing it, which is these are little nuances that when I'm playing this song up to speed, I'll probably throw in a few other things that are comfortable for me to do. But it doesn't affect the essence of the song. And as I said before, if your body type, if your fingers want to play a riff a certain way, that's fine. Go ahead and do it your way. And as long as you keep the basic melody intact, you'll be fine. Remember, this is Earl-esque playing, not note for note, because note for note is hard to pin down between these different transcriptions and different ways he played it live. Have fun with it. As a reminder, I had two videos before this, videos 1 and 2, which covered the picking hand and the fretting hand. So now we've got a culmination. We're going to take those 4 riffs that we've learned before, and we're going to apply them into the song along with the other measures to create the entire first break, opening break of Cumberland Gap as played by Earl Scruggs. If you're finding this a little difficult, having to stop is okay to look at a few measures to review them. But if you're really struggling, I would remind you that I have earlier videos for beginner banjo players that talk about and explain how to play these basic rolls that are part of Scruggs-style playing. That would be the forward roll, the forward-backward roll, the backward roll or reverse roll, the square roll. All of these are covered in earlier videos. So If you find yourself having trouble keeping up with this, just go back and look at some of those earlier videos. I'd like to count this in the time it's written. Okay, that's 2/4 time. So it's a little bit more challenging for most people than 4/4 time is, because typically in 4/4 time you will see the tab written out as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and those would be eighth notes. Well, here you still have 8 notes per measure, but there are 8 16th notes. 1 E and then 2 E and So that's going to be same number of notes in a measure, but we're going to count them a little bit differently. If you have trouble counting, don't worry about that. I will play examples of the timing and you can just follow that. We're going to open up with a pinch, 1 E and a 2 E and a 1, 2, and then we start the song. The first measure we covered in both the last 2 videos, so that should be kind of familiar now. It's this. Okay, it's a forward roll, followed by a 3rd string as an 8th note. Remember, the forward roll would be 16ths, 1 and a 2 and. But if you're not counting, it's. The next measure is going to be the slide. Now this is tricky because in the book, in the Revised Edition book, it has a 2/4 slide. In the original book, it has a 2/3 slide. The videos I've seen Scruggs playing, it looks to me like a 2/3 slide. So that's the way I explained it in the previous video. That's the way we're going to go with now. First measure, 2, 3, 4. Second measure. Another forward roll. It's a 3, 2, 1, 5, 1 pinch. And you've got a 2/3 slide. And then you're fretting the 1st string at the 2nd fret with your index finger for the last part of that measure. Hello everybody, a quick edit here on this song. I just saw the video, or a video, from back in the 50s of Earl playing it on the TV show. And I noticed that his fingering, when he does the 2nd measure, he is using his middle finger for both of those notes, like this. At a moderate speed, it would be. I like to put my index finger on there to get the little bluesier sound to kind of stay a little bit. But if you want to use your middle finger for that, that's okay. 3rd measure is. It's important to look at the 2nd measure with the 3rd measure, and here's why. If you look at the 3rd measure by itself, it's this. And that's the way I would finger it normally. With my ring finger hitting that note. But as I explained in the last video, we're going to fret that with our index finger. And you say, well, why is that? And I explained it briefly in the previous video, but now you're going to see if we play the 2nd measure, that 2/3 slide, and play that. We've already got the index finger on the 1st string 2nd fret, so there's no need to take it off and replace it with the 3rd finger. We can just leave it there to play the 3rd measure. Now at the end of that measure, you have a 2nd fret on the 3rd string. And you may bring your index finger up and play that. I'm going to move to the middle finger because that seems to be more comfortable, to me anyway. From the beginning, from the first measure, without the introductory pickup measure, I'm just going to play from that hammer. 1, 2, here we go. The fourth measure is going to be very much like the first measure, but there's a distinctive difference here. You're going to hammer before you hit the second string, so that's going to sound like this. If you're counting, it's kind of tricky. It's a 32nd note there. You've got 1 E. So in between 1 and E, if you're counting it, is where that note lands. 1 E and 2 and. First 4 measures. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's move on to the fifth measure. It is exactly the same as the first measure. The fifth measure is the same as the second measure. Seventh measure is the same as the third measure. Now the eighth measure is not the same as the fourth measure. Quick review. Measures 1, 2, 3 are the same as 5, 6, 7. The eighth measure goes like this. It's a forward-backward roll, and we practiced that in a previous video. If you have trouble with that, go back and look at that video. But it's going to sound like this. It is not a quick hammer. We'll call the quick hammer the one that is the 32nd note, the one that goes. And the regular hammer is the one that lands on the same beat when you're playing the second string. This is the slow or regular hammer. Let's try measures 5, 6, 7, and 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is measure 9, and it starts just like measure 1 and measure 5 did with this. That's why this was the first riff that we practiced back in the first video, and we did it again in the second video because it occurs so often here. The 10th measure is a little bit different. Up to this point we've had this twice, okay, for the measure that follows the first one. This time we've got the brush, and we talked about this extensively in video 2. Go back and check that out if you need to, but it's this. We're going to take measures 10 and 11 together. That's going to be this. Try it again. 2, 3, 4. Then you only have one measure left, and that's going to be measure 12, and it's the quick hammer, just like measure 4. Let's take the whole break at that speed, kind of a moderate to slow pace, with the pickup note this time. The count in will be 1, 2, 1, 2, and on the Second time I say 1, we'll come in. 1, 2, 1, 2. And that's it. That's the opening break. Good luck with it. As I said earlier, go back to the first 2 videos if you're struggling with a particular section here, and chances are I explained it. If you have questions, as always, leave them in the comment section and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Happy picking. See you next time. 1, 2.